Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Kristy Taylor, founder of WORxK Solutions and the WORxK Principle. And I am so excited to be here today to film this episode of the WORxK Solutions Podcast, where we'll be discussing leading change through behavior agility and not compliance. And for my guest today, I have Lieutenant Colonel retired Paul Lawrence Vann. He is the founder and president of the Wealth Building Academy, a premier leadership development and financial consultancy company headquartered here in Washington, D.C. Now, Paul is a retired military officer with 22 years serving in the United States Air Force. He has traveled all over, served all over, but today he is an internationally recognized speaker and was recently featured in the Voices of Change magazine as one of the top 40 speakers of the future, with, of course, Les Brown on the cover. He is a 3-time #1 international best-selling author, and Paul recently co-authored The Prescription for Success, which topped Amazon charts. And I am so proud that to have co-authored that book with Paul, and we've had an opportunity to collaborate before. So when I said, okay, in this season, we are focusing on flexibility, behavior agility, and just the importance of being able to adapt in the workplace. And none other, why not have a conversation with someone who's experienced in this field of leadership development? And so, Paul, welcome to the show today. Is there something I missed in your bio that you want to know?
No, but thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to be here with WORxK Solutions Podcast, because you're all about transformation. You're all about uplifting, and I always want to be a part of that. So I'm honored to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much. So in the past at WORxK Solutions, one of the things we have really focused on is mindset, but we have decided to take that a lot further. And so if you're watching the podcast, no matter what day or what time, you may be watching it, as it comes out or a month from now. One of the things we really focus on, we have developed this triad where we talk about, behavior and mindset equals outcomes. And we're going to be focusing on helping individuals as well as organizations. So today we're going to talk individuals and organizations. So I'm going to kick this conversation off, Paul, and really looking forward to really engaging with you. So when organizations talk about change, they often focus on policies and processes, right? And here we are in trying to really get people to understand the importance of understanding how to pivot and modify your behavior and your mindset. So from your perspective, what actually determines whether change sticks or fades within an organization?
That's a really great question, and thank you so much for it. And I just want to say that when I was working in the Pentagon, I was actually the chief of the policy branch. So it really aligns with what I've done in the past. But what it really takes into account is when we look at compliance, compliance is all about following the rules. It means you don't break them. It means you stay there. But the real, when you look at the real issue at heart, it's really all about going in at that behavior agility. So instead of people following a rule, a policy that's written on a piece of paper, they actually need to model the leader themselves. Mm-hmm. You need to watch the leader, see if they interact, do they communicate. Here's a quick way to find out. If you're working in an organization and the leader with the title's door is closed all the time, that's not a good leader. You have to be out there on the floor, as they say, if you're in a factory, because I've worked in a factory before, or on Capitol Hill, I've worked for a member of Congress. You have to get out and engage with people. And it's not what's written on the paper, but it's modeling the leader themselves. What type of communication skills do they have? Do they have empathy? Do they have self-awareness? And we know that they have to have leadership skills, because if you can't lead yourself, you cannot lead anyone else. And so when it really gets down to how to make this stick, it's all about the behavior is supported, modeled, and reinforced, and not when it's merely mandated. In other words, a leader or an employee who works for them may find themselves in a crisis situation. Do they stick to that policy, or do they break ranks, if you will? And so you want to have it in a position whereby the leader, if he's an influential leader, he's going to develop other leaders within that organization, the men and women in that organization. And as a result, they will model after him.
I think that's That's a great segue into this discussion, right? Because we're talking about behavior agility. I have an opportunity. If you've ever had an opportunity to take something like the DISC assessment or
Oh yeah.
Myers-Briggs,
Oh
and
yeah.
you get
All
those
of it.
results. And myself, I'm a DISC coach, and I specialize in what's called the DISC Flex. And it's one of the reasons why we talk about behavior agility. But any of us who do this mindset and behavior coaching, we're technically teaching our clients to focus on behavior agility, right? To be able to adapt to circumstances and to change. And to your point, where you're talking about being able to emulate the leader, I'm sure that you've taken plenty of business courses where you learned about the Kotter 8-step approach to change, right? And one of the things that Kotter says in there is that you have to have a champion of change. It's not going to just work to just say, I mean, we come from a military culture, but I can honestly say that even though we have rules and structure within the military and guidelines, we still really focus on developing our people, right? We always say people first, mission always, people first, right? Because we want to make sure that we take care of our folks. And so when you have leaders who come in and they just institute policy and push compliance, but they don't model the behaviors, it can really have an overall impact on the organization culture, morale. And so I want you to comment on that, Paul, but I'm also going to ask that have you to comment on that in the context of this next question, because I would like to hear your perspective on this concept of behavior agility from a leadership standpoint, and why is it more powerful than just compliance-based change leadership?
Sure, and that's a really great segue, of course, because when we look at compliance, it tells people what to do. And when the rules are clear, they have to be clear. But when it comes to behavioral agility, this prepares people to lead when the rules don't fit the moment. And we know whether it's in a Fortune 500 corporation, like I work with Mobil Oil, or in the military, you really have to be in that position where you prepare people no matter what the circumstance is and the situation happens to be, because compliance provides a lot of control. And a influential leader, you don't want to be controlling people. You really want them to use their excellence at what they do, their knowledge, their skills, their abilities, the KSAs that are out there. And so it's more an aspect of how do you get people to do their best work and do it authentically, as opposed to seeing a piece of paper, because a piece of paper with policies and procedures on it can't lead anyone. Only another person, and a person perhaps with a title, can lead people. And so you want to make sure that that particular communication line is open as it applies to looking at the agility aspect of it. And of course, we know in today's workplace and workforce, it's dynamic, more dynamic than I've ever seen. It is really out there. And one of the things I want to say is people don't need to follow the instructions. They need to follow the leader, and they also need to be able to think for themselves. That's what a leader looks for. You need to be able to think, decide, and then act wisely, because without it, you can't get the work done, because that leader has a vision, a mission, and goals for the organization, and that needs to be communicated to them so that they can actually fill those roles and doing it every day. And so when it gets down to it, it provides behavioral agility, creates lasting change, whereas policies may not. And that's
I really like that, because we do this from both an organizational, and you can say this a million ways. I mean, for my organization, I chose to say behavior agility. You can say behavioral diversity, behavioral modification, because what we when I'm working with individual clients and we're talking about, have you ever had that person that you've known that knows someone who, well, I'm this way. Like I do these personality tests, like the 4 lenses, the DISC, and it's like, I'm this way, right? And I'm not going to change. And if you do personality tests, and if you've done that before, then you know that we're not just one way. Like like if you've done Myers-Briggs or something like that, we're literally a mixture of everything, right? But some people are like, well, I'm this way. Like with some of my clients, I've used the colors test before, and people are always proud to be the goals, right? Because those are the sticklers. But you have to have some flexibility, because to be able to adapt your behavior. Now, I'm lucky enough to have access to your book, Paul, Leadership is Influence, which is available on Amazon. And one of the things you wrote in here when you talk about, qualities of being a leader, you talk about influence, and this is on page 21. And you say that influence is one of the most impactful leadership abilities, right? And being able to get others to follow your vision and get the work done is huge. And so I think that plays a lot into the context of the way you just answered that question, right? It's not about, yes, in any organization you think about, there's going to be some regulatory compliance, but it's not about just laying out the rules.
Exactly.
Right? It's about setting the expectation and being a leader of influence. Any comments on that? Because I want to make sure we highlight that blueprint, right?
Thank you so much for that. And I believe that it's really an aspect of a leader cannot tell their subordinates, let's say if you're in the military, first of all, if there's a situation and they may have made a mistake, you cannot brown shoe them. You cannot really do this in front of other employees, their peers and other managers. That's a no-no 1000%. And so people have to understand that if this person does this to people, that really is all about the culture. Do you want to have a culture within the organization, one that's open, one that when we look at the self-leadership, you want to be able to have that self-awareness. A leader has to have, with the title, has to have that aspect with them. And then they have to be accountability. And then they have to have empathy, because you have to put yourself and walk in someone else's shoes to understand where they're coming from. And as you referenced before about the individual, this is just who I am. No, you're much more than that. You just need to open up your mind a little bit more. You need to have that growth mindset where you're always willing to learn. And when you have that scarcity mindset, this is as far as you want to go. You don't want to learn anything else. And then you wonder why you're not having the promotions coming about, because you're not willing to change. And change is good because you become better as a part of change. You don't degress and get worse, you get better. And so I believe that it's really important that people understand that when it comes to influential leadership, you have to develop other people in the organization, and you have to let them really rise to their level of excellence. And everyone has it in them, whether they know it or not.
You know, I love what you absolutely just said. One of the things that we have really done in this season, as we release our new products like the 21-day career pivot, in every single book, from our work principle primer to our manuals, we have put mindset up front. And in the book that we collaborated on, Paul, that some of the very things that you're saying, every author was able to contribute, and we're all saying kind of the same thing in our own way. But I love what you just said there about allowing people to rise to their level of excellence, right? Giving them that space to grow and to become who they are. And I think that this is really important for leaders. First of all, it can be two ways, right? You don't have to have a specific title to be, so you can be a leader by appointment or just a natural leader, right?
Right.
And, you know, you've answered some of the questions that I have, but I still want to come back and touch base on, leaders rolling out change and continue to build on the context of that conversation. And I just want to know, a couple of things from your perspective. You've already kind of highlighted the importance of leaders really emulating this change that they want to see. It's not just going to be a case of do what I say. What's that saying that parents say growing up? Do as I say and not what I do.
That's right.
I feel like that's the quickest way to lose credibility as a leader in an organization, right? So I want you to just share an example of a time when a leader's behavior either accelerated or stalled change. And from your perspective, what are some of the common mistakes that leaders make when they're rolling out change?
Well, number one, they're thinking that the policy or the compliance is really going to change people, but it's not. Most people are going to be resistant to change because that's how it is sometimes.
We've always done it this way.
Absolutely. We've always done it this way, and we're going to do it that way now. But if you have a leader who's in charge and they are not flexible, they're going to lose their employees. They're going to lose their office, and people are not going to have respect for them. And again, as I mentioned before, if the leader with the title's door to his office or suite is closed, that's a telltale sign that they're not a good leader. Because you have to be out on that, what we say in the factory, the shop floor, shaking hands, bringing in some lunch or some donuts or coffee for people, talking, get to know who they are. Because when you really get down to it, Dr. Taylor, really the workplace is a community unto itself. It's a culture.
You spend 8 hours a day there.
8 hours a day there. And if you work in the Pentagon, I've been there 25 hours a day. And then get up and go negotiate.
Hey, I'm here in the DC area. So you already know if you spend 8 hours a day at work, you're going to spend at least 3 hours in traffic, maybe an hour and a half to two getting to work, and an hour and a half or on the train, right? So
exactly.
that is about 12 hours of your day right there. And then you got to sleep 8 hours. So the people that you almost are at work more than you are with your own family on a daily basis.
You absolutely are. And if you have the phone, it's even more. And another thing that has to take place is that, again, when we look at everyone in the organization as a leader, because people have to lead themselves, right? Everyone has a life to lead, but they have to be able to model that leader and then coached by that leader and rewarded by that leader. So that's very important. And then change fails when leaders, when they push compliance. Compliance doesn't work. Leadership works. Without that human being, I can't do it. We never will do it. And so you have to have people who are willing to come in to be the example for those that work for them. And when you all working, going in the same direction to achieve the vision of that leader. And not only that, and I'll use an example. I had, and I'll make it really quick. I had working in the Pentagon, and this order came down. It came down from the commander-in-chief. And no one wanted that project, so all eyes turned to me. And so I took on the project, had never done it before, and I had to make calls to different locations because we were trying to help an ally out. And I was able to call the people. We had to get the equipment to the location. And then finally, I turned on the television, CNN, and it was a red carpet ceremony for the ally that we had done. So it made the commander-in-chief happy. It made the senators and the congresspersons happy. It made our organization look great. And so again, there are opportunities or times that come up. You don't have the experience. I did not have the experience of doing that, but it didn't mean that I couldn't get the experience.
Right.
To help not only our country, but the allies' country. And of course, that's a different time than it is today.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just the willingness to do something that you haven't done, right? Because again, we're speaking from an organizational context, but how many times have I worked with one-on-one clients, or probably you the same, and they've said, well, I am just this way. And I just think that leads into my next question, which is when we talk about behavior agility or being able to lead change, whether it's a leader leading change or you as a person who's done this, who is taking on these initiatives, what type of mindset does a person really have to be able to successfully lead change and implement it, ensure it is sustainable?
Well, what it really comes down to from a mindset perspective, it really has to come from a growth one. And a lot of this takes place if a employee has that professional development that applied for them. In other words, they work on their communication skills. They work on their team building skills. They lead projects that is going to make a difference, not just small projects, because those are called tasks, but you want to be able to put the employees in a position where they can actually go out with a project, pull a team together and get everything worked out. And that's part of what I did when I did some foreign military sales. And you pull the team together, or acquisition management, you pull the team together, you have about 12 contractors, and you have to decide which of these contractors are we going to select for this program, this system program that we have. And you bring not only the civilians, the federal employees, but also defense contractors as well. And you make your choice for multi-billion-dollar projects, and you're able to see it come through. But the mindset that goes with that, it has to all be about the team. It can't be about I. There's no I in team, as the quote goes. And so we need to put it in that position organizationally where the organization can win, and the organization can win because the team can do more than an individual can. And our jobs, as you know, whether it's corporate or military, is to make our leader look good.
Exactly. You know, we talk a lot about mentorship and sponsorship, and people don't realize, like when I'm training young people, I always say, man, you know, everything that you do is part of your career brand, right?
Absolutely.
And so you want people to be willing to bet on you, because when people are sponsoring you, quote unquote, saying your name in that room that you're not present, and they're advocating for you, they're tying their reputation to yours. So even if you're not in love with the boss that you work for, right, you still need to show up and do a good job and be professional, because you never know when that person can become a point of reference. And we have to remember that we are at work to work, you know, and yes, we're going to be cordial. And so, but you don't have to be best friends with your boss. You just want to have a cordial relationship, a great working relationship, to the point where if you find yourself needing something in the future, or maybe if that he or she moves up, they'll take you with them, right? Because you're still trying to build your career. One more question, and then I want to give you the floor to share what you have coming up, because you have some great things, right? So my last question to you kicked this off talking about you know, that leaders need to be able to model the behavior that they're trying to implement in terms of the change, right? It's not just to do as I say, not as I do. So I just want to give you an opportunity to say, when it comes to leading change, what are some practical shifts that leaders, or practical tips that you want to provide leaders with to ensure that they are being adaptable and open in modeling these behaviors for their team to ensure that the change is sustainable?
Sure, Dr. Taylor, and that's a great question. And what you want to start to look at is it starts with how you respond when plans change or results fall short. Being adaptive, leaders pause, they reassess and explain their thinking. And they do it out loud so people see how decisions evolve, not just the final call. And so if you have a employee or supervisor and they make a mistake, that's a good thing, because it's learning that's taking place. And it encompasses not berating the individual that may have made a mistake, but just ask them, what did you learn from this and how can we make it better? And so that's a part of being adaptable as well. And then we want to invite input before the problems escalate. In other words, we may be working on a project and we see that it could be a problem, could be not having enough staff. The budget is not large enough to do what needs to be done. And we may not have the proper allies to help us, or associates to help us. And so you want to be able to have this aspect of having openness as well, and really encourage the openness so that people won't be afraid of making mistakes. No one wants to make a mistake, but no successful person has ever been flawless. They've all made mistakes.
Absolutely.
They've all made. Michael Jordan made more mistakes than anyone, and that's why he was so good. And so when leaders admit that they don't know and they seek feedback and change course, and this again is being modeled, is being viewed by that employee as well.
So employees want to see that humanist side, right? And I love that you just said that.
Are they real? That's what they want to know. And real is the word for that, has been authentic, being them real selves, and that they're not infallible, that they make mistakes. And then when leaders model curiosity, flexibility, and humility, those traits spread across the team, and people are watching it. Just like a person with a title, leader with the title, is watching their employees and how they work, the employees are also watching the leader. In other words, if the leader goes out and they all go out to a restaurant and the leader with the title goes on a bender, well, his leadership side is gone because of a lack of respect. Right?
And you may be surprised the number of people who think that it's cool to, it's absolutely not. Right. Absolutely not. You have to maintain some type of professional distance and professionalism about still being personal. And I think that's one of the hardest things of leadership, right? Because you have to be constantly looking at making sure that you're not coming across wrong.
Are you who you say you are?
I am.
Yeah. Yes.
But you also have to be worried about, what are people going to think? You have to be aware. Leaders have to have this real sense of awareness. And it's not that you're going to get it right every time, but you have to be constantly assessing. So we got about 5 minutes left. And I actually want to give 3 or 4 of those minutes back to you, because you had some awesome stuff coming up. And so take your time. Tell us what you have coming up. And then I'm going to ask you one final question, which is to give us a piece of advice. Okay.
Fantastic. And thank you so much. One of the things that I'm doing right now, I'm being positioned for more speaking engagements, live engagements, as well as virtual. It's something I've done in the past. I'm going to do more of it this year. I also have this webinar series going on right now, how to get promoted in 30 days. And I'm doing it through the Fast Track Self-Leadership Program. And that particular webinar runs every Thursday at 7 p.m. You'll see it they're on Facebook ads everywhere. And it lasts for maybe 90 minutes. And I make an offer for people who are interested in me helping them to get promoted in that 30-day window to get more visibility and showing them exactly how it's done. And so I have that every Thursday night. I'm working on my 4th book right now. And so my time is really, really, I'm maximizing everything. And then the other aspect of it is that, of course, I have the essence of me is about leadership for those 22 years in the Air Force, but my specialty is financial management. So right now I'm going through a stock investing course that I just graduated from. So I'll be able to teach others how to do that as well, which I think is really great. We need more revenue to offset inflation, right? We need to offset that inflation, grocery store. And now with Medicare being what it is, people with healthcare, finding ways to generate more revenue. And so that's what's taking place right now. And I'm going to be on many podcasts coming up, and I'll also be doing some television work as well.
Oh, I am so excited for you. I just think, we met a year or so ago. We were just kind of really kicking off some of the things for WORxK Solution. It really has been a pleasure to get to know you. So I'm going to ask you for one piece of advice. Sure. And what is the final piece of advice that we are always saying we are here to write the prescription for career success. And actually, before I say that, I do want to say a couple things that we have coming up with WORxK Solutions, because you got to plug yourself, right? So one of the things that we're committed to with this behavior agility, and you'll see it being discussed throughout the podcast and throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for our email list, check that out. And Paul, you have an email list too. So make sure you visit Paul's site, right? And you sign up for his email list. We're going to be doing the 21-day career pivot challenge. And that is coming up in February. And you'll also start to see my face more on social media, because I am not a big social media person, but I'm going to be popping on starting next week and kind of sharing some things with you. And so we plan to reset almost every month with a 21-day career pivot challenge. And this is about branding yourself and your career from end to end. The manual will be on sale on Amazon. I have two of Paul's current books. And of course, we had the opportunity to write the prescription for career success together. So Leadership is Influence, available on Amazon. Faith for Times Like Now, available on Amazon. Prescription for Career Success, Volume 1, Paul, available on Amazon. Paul, when is your new book coming?
This book will come probably in the June timeframe.
Okay.
Yes, I just have to go back and do some review, make some changes, get some edits, and I'll be ready to go. I'm looking forward to it. And people can go to my website to learn more about what I do working in the leadership space at www.paulvannspeaks.com, and you'll find everything there that you could ever know or want to know.
So the final question here is, Paul, is what piece of advice, we like to help to write the prescription for workplace success and career success here at WORxK Solutions, because people have a hard time saying that name, right? They see the WORxK, but that RX is, we write the prescription for career and workplace success. So in the context of this conversation, what is one final piece of advice that you would like to give to leaders, Paul?
Well, thank you so much for that question, and I'm honored to have been here and share time with you and the audience. But it's this, and it's something to really focus on, especially in the early of 2026, is to focus less on managing the change and more on modeling the behavior the change requires. I think that's very important. And so people don't follow change plans, they follow leaders. And behavior is what turns change into culture. So it's all about that modeling. It's about that setting that blueprint for people in the different organizations, and it spans all industries. So when leaders demonstrate adaptability, curiosity, and calm under pressure, they give people a blueprint for how to respond. And if you're modeling the leader, if the leader are doing these things, then it's going to work for you as well. But if they're not, you got to call it what it is, and you're going to have to be the example for the leaders sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that happens as well, which I think is really great. But I'm very honored to have been with you, Dr. Taylor, and it won't be the last time, but I definitely wish you well in everything that you're doing, because I know that you're making a difference. You're shifting the atmosphere, new books, the challenges that you have coming up. And so it's my honor to be a part of that with you and others who are in the leadership and that change management space as well.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. So again, check Paul out. We'll make sure that we have all of his information in the description. Every Thursday, he's popping on. He's doing 90-minute webinars. And if you are trying to get promoted in 30 days, all right, reach out to Paul, sign up for his program. You can't go wrong with free, right? Sign up for the free webinar. Let me correct myself, because the program itself is not free. But sign up for his webinar, learn more about him. Reach out to him on social media. Paul, again, thank you for being here today. This was the start of a great conversation for the second season of the WORxK Solutions Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
It's my honor, and happy 2026 to you.
Thank
and
you.
the audience.